I'm Orland Park Mayor Dan McLaughlin. The following program is brought to you by the Village of Orland Park.
Hello and welcome to the Village of Orland Park's In Focus. I'm Trustee Jim Dodge. I lead our Community Engagement Committee, and I'm joined today with Chief Tim McCarthy and Trustee Dan Calandriello. Trustee Calandriello, Dan, leads our Public Safety Committee, so let's start there with our focus. Dan, can you give us a sense of what Orland Park does very broadly on public safety issues?
Sure, there's really 2 points that I think are key when you look at the overall picture of Orland Park. First of all, the statistics. We are having a 20% decrease of crime in the last 2 years, and I think a key in those statistics is the there's 90 less retail thefts this year from last year. And one key number, 0, is how many motor vehicle thefts we had this year in the month of December. And the second thing, I think those numbers don't just happen. It's because of a professional staff. Chief does a great job with the department, and one good thing as a prosecutor, I see Orland Park in the courtroom every day and how professional they are and how they are the gold standard in the courthouse, in the neighborhood.
Well, that's great to hear. Tim, can you give a sense for the folks in Orland Park about what we do in terms of crime prevention and some of those programs that we have in place now?
Well, we've had numerous programs over the years in regards to crime prevention, all of them wrapped up into our problem-oriented policing, community policing initiatives. Crime prevention starts with beat meetings, talking to our residents, our Police in the Park programs, National Night Out, where we try to engage the community to talk to them about what their problems are. That translates into different strategies. For example, over the Christmas holiday season, for the first time we put 4 or 5 strategies together. More officers walking beats in our retail commercial areas. Doing undercover operations with our loss prevention officers at many of the major stores, and having what we call our retail detail, where we had officers in cars going from one small strip mall to the next, getting out of the cars and walking the malls. So we put that all together, and we saw quite a reduction in retail thefts, but more importantly, very few other crimes as well. As you pointed out, we had I think we had 1 burglary to motor vehicle, no auto thefts in the month of December, which commonly occurred at our retail commercial areas. But auto thefts are way down also. We're really pleased with that. And frankly, most of them take place off the lots of the car dealerships, usually involving some type of collusion. So we had a good year. We have more challenges ahead, and I know Dan's going to talk a little bit about Ruse Burglaries, and we're coming up with a strategy to go after that very aggressively this spring and summer.
One follow-up question to that, Tim. It seems like clearly the strategies are working to have our police force more visible, so that's great to hear. How's it been received by the residents of Orland Park? What kind of feedback are we getting from our constituents?
We get a lot of letters, a lot of telephone calls praising the work of our officers. We get a complaint every now and again too, by the way, to be perfectly honest, and we have to address those just as vigorously as we our other actions. We seem to, when we go to beat meetings, when we go to our Police in the Park, we go to National Night Out and have all these community engagement programs, Citizens Police Academy, very positive response from our residents. And it's important to know what is bothering them. We may not be right all the time. We may think the biggest problem in a neighborhood might be speeding vehicles or something like that, and we might find out it's something far different than that. So overall, our residents are not bashful about telling us one way or the other about the performance of the police department, and that's the way it ought to be.
No, that's great, and I think Dan and I on the board, and you running the police department, it sure seems like a critical piece of this is making sure our residents know they can reach out to us and that we'll respond to them. So that's great to hear. So Dan, let's Chief mentioned a little bit earlier the Ruse Burglaries, where we think some people are out there trying to prey on seniors or some of the unsuspecting. So let's touch base on that for a little bit, if we could.
Well, those are, and they're happening a lot more often in this area, not Orland Park in particular, but overall in the Chicagoland area, as I'm seeing in court, is that's when someone comes to the front door, talks about a service they want to provide, and their goal is to distract you because there's someone else is coming around to the back, going around the house, and somehow getting in the house, the backyard, taking your jewelry, taking your cash. So, and most of the times they prey on senior citizens, older people who maybe want to talk a little more. And pretty much as you're talking to this person about a service, someone else going around and taking everything in your house.
That just feels awful, right? So have we seen some, I mean, where are we at with Ruse Burglaries and how we're dealing with this?
They've increased. They're not always successful. In fact, less than half the time they're successful. But there needs to be a special punishment for people that prey upon the senior members of our community. And I think I'm close to being one, by the way.
But you look really good, Tim,
well, thank you.
Just so you know.
Thank you. But we're working hard. We've in January and February, we've done a complete analysis of every single one of these events, where they've happened, the time they've happened, what beats they're on, and we're going to go forward with a strategy this spring and this summer to try to prevent and apprehend those people doing it. But we need the cooperation of the public, and we put a lot of information out there about the Ruse burglaries, that they can't wait for 10 minutes to call us. They need to call us right away.
Right.
They need to tell these people no. They need to ask for their identification, because occasionally they say they're from the Village of Orland Park, but they'll claim they're from the utilities, they claim they're from the county, they claim they're from all different sources. And we need to have those people ask for identification, get the plate number off the car, because we've been fairly successful. Last year we made 2 very significant arrests. We work with the state police that has a unit that works on these type of Ruse burglaries in particular. So, but we hope to have a really comprehensive strategy going forward for the spring and summer, because we know the times, we know the locations, and we're going to be waiting.
It sounds like, for a question for both of you, it sounds like these are fairly professional criminals that have figured out how to do literally the ruse and get someone to trust them for a second while they're breaking into the house. Is that our experience with them, that it's not just a sort of run-of-the-mill, they're more professionals, or they're bigger rings? They've
been doing it for years. There's people that have been doing it for years. They're fairly sophisticated in the way they do it as far as criminals go, and they've had a great deal of success. And it's not Orland Park in particular. It's been all of Cook County, DuPage County. It's all over the region, not just here. But the cases we've had, the state's attorney's been outstanding. The judges have recognized that they're preying on seniors, and oftentimes there'll be very high bonds and very aggressive prosecution by the state's attorney's office.
Well, I liked your idea about a special punishment for them, but go ahead.
There's also, but they have the same playbook over and over again. They come in saying they're going to fix a patch in front of on your sidewalk or something, and they put sand in there when they're doing it, or they talk about what property lines, or looking at a house in the neighborhood. There's definitely 10 where they always keep on using it. I'm trying to think of some other ones.
Yeah, oftentimes they'll want to look in the backyard at utilities. They'll say there's a utility problem in your backyard.
Well, that one's an easy one, because I think everybody assumes that
whether it's cable,
right.
whether it's sewer or electric, you know, there's some utilities running through everyone's property in most cases. But Dan's right. It's almost everything you can think of. They're from the village. They need to check your sump pump. They need to check your the water meter. Anything you can think of has been tried.
Got it. And so it sounds to me like we've got a strategy in place, and we're ready to do this in terms of getting the information out to our seniors, and hopefully the seniors' neighbors, so they understand, kind of keep an eye out. So is that how we're going to go forward? We're ready to go? We'll start this soon?
Well, we've looked at all the data of when it happens. We don't want to give away the whole plan.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, why tell the bad guys what not to do, right?
Well, hopefully they're not watching our cable show.
Yeah, let's hope. So, Dan, any comments on this?
No, I think it's the key thing is that, you know, Tim's knows what he's doing. They're figuring out a plan, and just make sure the residents know, like these events, having on TV and getting out to know, hey, this happens. Let's make sure we call the police and make sure prevent a crime happening.
Well, and hopefully this is one piece of many things we're going to do as a municipality, the police department, the village board, the communication department, all that, to get the information out so people are more informed about this.
We put this out to our public works department and other people that are constantly driving around the village performing duties on behalf of the village, that they're aware of it. If they see a suspicious vehicle, to call us. So we've got a lot of eyes and ears out there, and now we just need the public to call us immediately when something like this happens.
And hopefully we can encourage that. Dan, Tim, I'd like to go to a topic that we've previously covered. The inaugural In Focus, we were looking as a community at the heroin issue.
Yes.
And it's still an important issue, but let's go back and touch base and update folks on it. Dan, any comments on this?
Well, I see this every day in the courtroom. I mean, I see kids 18, 25, they go into the city, southwest sides, come and buy their heroin, buy the drugs, and take it back to the suburbs. I mean, it's a sad issue because you see kids every day destroying their lives based on this drug. And I know it's a disease, it's a crime, but it's sad that it happens. But I am glad that Orland Park has and is continuing to educate and to talk about this problem. I know, Tim, you guys do a lot with that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We recognized the heroin problem a number of years ago. And we started out with our In Focus series, but we've taken a strategy of prevention, enforcement, and education, and that continues today. I think one of the more important things we do is our DARE booster program. We teach DARE in the schools to our 5th or 6th graders, depending on which school district it is. But for the 3rd year this year, we're going to be doing a DARE booster program for our 8th graders, focused specifically on heroin. So it's going to take a few years before we see the results, but this is a very realistic education in regards to the problems with heroin and what it leads to. And the problem is severe, and it's as severe in Orland Park as it is anywhere else. And it leads to additional crime, typically property crimes, to support the habit. But women become huge victims of this when they become addicted, because oftentimes they're trading sex for drugs, and they become victims many times over. And we're also looking at a program that we'll be bringing to the village board in the not too distant future of equipping our officers and training our officers with Narcan, which is a nasal mist, which can reverse the effects of a heroin overdose. In most cases, the police department responds first to almost every incident. The fire department is right behind, and they're equipped to do it, but seconds can save lives. So we'll be coming with an initiative to the village board. We haven't determined yet the cost, both for the Narcan, which I think is minimal, as well as the training for our officers. But you know, we're in the business of saving lives too, and along with the education, prevention, and enforcement, we think this can be an important part, because I think we can help save some lives along the way.
Yeah, no, and thank you for that, because it sure sounds like there's a couple things there. Is it Narcan? Is that what you call it?
Yes.
That it could prevent a police, you know, civilian interaction getting out of control, right, with the drug induced, but also saving lives. I mean, you'd hate to see that, because to your point, there's all forms of victimization going on here with this drug. So
it is, and it's a big problem. We did, I thought, a very excellent In Focus program of 3 parts about 2 years ago to educate the public. We're not denying it's here, and we're meeting it head on with the resources that we have.
You know, on that point, recently we had Senator Kirk came to Orland Park, and there were a number of mayors from this area that were there, and we were handing out copies of that. So the information that Orland Park has done, because it impacts everybody. This is not one community, it's all communities, and it's a systematic problem, excuse me. So great to see that we're making efforts on that, and thank you for the update.
Thank you.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit. So school safety has been a topic for a while. And I know that the Village of Orland Park and the police department in particular has a great relationship with the school districts. Let's touch a little bit on that in terms of what we're thinking broadly, police department and the village on school safety.
You can take lead on that one. I know that we have a lot of, we have great communications with the school districts. I know that they actually just hired one of our former police officers that I think is helping us a lot. And also I think the key thing is, these guys are professionals. They know what they're doing. I mean, there's so many different things. I don't want to take your thunder, but go ahead. You can talk about all the different things you guys do with them.
Well, our relationship with the schools goes back many years. I've been here 20 years, and it goes back before then. But starting with the village board funding, 2 DARE officers and a school resource officer that are in our schools every day. We have a great relationship with Janet Stutz, with Jim Gay, with Julia Wheaton, all of our principals and superintendents.
And superintendents up at the schools. Okay.
146, 140. Having the DARE officers in the school, having an SRO at Sandburg is great. They meet our police officers, they're comfortable with them, they move on to Sandburg High School, and we have an SRO there, and they're comfortable with the police being around as a resource, not necessarily there. Our goal is not to arrest our way out of anything.
Right.
But then it goes further. We've been doing our lockdown drills for years with all of our school districts. Now We do active shooter drills in the school as required by law now to do an active shooter drill in each school to demonstrate to the faculty. We don't do it when the children are around, to demonstrate to the faculty so they understand what could happen when in fact they call the police because they have a suspicious person. And we're moving on with a number of other initiatives with the school districts to harden the locations, to have man traps and additional hardening of those sites. So we've looked at what's happened nationwide and most recently in Connecticut, and we're responding to that. And we have a very responsive school district, 135, 40, 46, St. Mike's, all of them are very responsive. But resources are limited too, as we know. They don't have an unlimited budget either.
So Tim, thanks for bringing it up. I think after what happened in Connecticut, which is just a horrible tragedy, we've had a number of conversations, the village and the police department with the schools, and we've talked about some of the things that we could do to help them, all the programs you've talked about, but additional tie-ins. I just want to go back and I think you and I and the three of us might be used to the word of man traps and hardening targets.
Yes.
But if you could put that in more layman's speak, just for the audience, that'd be great.
A man trap is a secure vestibule, so to speak.
The front entrance.
Always at the front entrance where visitors and parents come. They go through one door, and now they're in an isolated area, and it gives the secretary or whomever's there to screen the person to make sure that they have legitimate business at the school. Then they can buzz them into the school itself. And now the time has come. We've learned that those areas are oftentimes not well secured, and now it's time to do that. I'm happy to say several years ago I did a security survey for Carl Sandburg High School, and that's a big place. And it's had so many additions that there is no one person, I believe, that really knows the entire place. But we spent weeks up there going through every part of it, and District 230 has responded, and they've taken a lot of the recommendations within their budget, because again, as you said, no one has unlimited budget, and they're making improvements there. And along with our school resource officer that we've had there for, I think it's almost 10 years now, we think we're making the environment more and more secure.
I think Tim touched on this key point is the officers aren't there to arrest whole Sandburg High School. No, they're there for the presence. I think that's the key thing, that they see the officers, they talk to them, and that's maybe sometimes where we get the police officers get some intel about other things. But the key thing is just they're talking to the kids, they're walking around, and the presence is the key, I think, with school safety, with all safety, I think.
Well, I think that matters because there's a lot going on in modern cultural America, and it'd be great that I think it's great that our police officers are building relationships, and hopefully comes with that with respect. So these kids and the resources at the school see this as a way to kind of solve and address some issues. So I'm thrilled with that. And Tim, as a parent of a kid in the schools, I appreciate the fact that we're looking at this one, because the whole thing in Connecticut was just absolutely horrible. Where you take a culture of violence, access to military grade firearms, and mental illness, and unsecured schools. It's a tragedy, and I'm glad we're working on it as much as we can.
And you brought up a great topic, mental illness, because we are seeing the police are responding to an ever increasing number of cases where we end up doing involuntary commitments. And the Tribune, Southtown, all have reported about the funds have been reduced for mental health care. So we see it coming into the police realm. It gets into people are being arrested when really they need mental health care more than anything else. But we have trained all of our officers now with NAMI, the National Association for the Mentally Ill, and we do a training every year. But it seems like that's falling into the police arena more and more, because there seems to be less and less services for those that have those type of issues and need some help.
And you guys are on the front line. Dan and I see it on the village board, because it's extra resources you need and extra expenditures we face as a municipality, and everybody would like us to do other things with those resources. So it's a hard problem. So.
Oh, it is, and I think one thing going back is the professionalism of our police force, because if Tim didn't provide, or we didn't provide the training for that, then you have problems with lockup, you'll have problems with the prosecution. The key thing is, some departments don't have that training. I would almost say probably half the departments in this area don't have that training, and us having that training is key. So then we save us lockups, save us possible lawsuits, save us a lot of different things, which is key that we keep on educating our officers to make sure we have a professional force.
Dan, that's great, because you see it, as you said, you see it in court, and Orland Park Police Department have had a great run record when you get some of these big important crimes. We're doing the investigations properly, we're handling the case properly, and that matters for the whole criminal justice chain to work. So that's great to see. So. Well, thank you both, and Chief, thanks for coming in, and thanks for all that you do in terms of the professionalism of the
Thanks for all the support you give us. We can't do it without that, I assure you.
And for both Dan and I, we're trying to do what people of Orland Park want us to do, and you've got a professional department, and we're going to keep making sure you have the resources as we tackle some of these bigger issues.
Exactly. I think we need to make sure we give support, but we also make sure the public knows what we're doing, all the great work we're doing. I think we had a great Christmas season, and we got to make sure we tell people, because, and I also think they see it when we have officers always there during the Christmas season and stuff like that. So I think it's key that we tell people what we're doing as a force and what we're doing as a village, because we want to support good things. And Tim and Chief's doing a great job, and we make sure we tell people how great of a job you're doing.
Oh, thank you. And it's the men and women of the patrol officers, detectives that are really doing the work, and I take a lot of the bows, maybe.
Well, you're doing it on their behalf, so I'm
yes,
sure they
I
appreciate
am.
it.
Yes,
So again, thank you, and thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time, and we're going to bring this to a close. But if there's any questions that you have regarding some of the programs that we have going forward and what we're going to do, or if there's any questions you might have for Trustee Calandriello, myself, or the Chief, by all means, reach out to the village in any way that you prefer. Email, give us a call, etc., and we'll get right back to you. So thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, I'm Brian Reese from Orland Park, and you're watching Orland Park Television.